everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Soundbites for Immigration Success. We're happy to have you with us. We bring this series to you so you can get to know your fellow consultant, hear a little bit about them, hear their challenges and wins, maybe a little bit of their takeaway advice so that you can bring back to your own practice. My name is Monica O'Brien. I look after education and stakeholder engagement at CAPIC. But more importantly, I would like to introduce you to Carolyn Watson. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you, Monica. It's great to be here.
It is wonderful to have you here. So, Carolyn, the first thing I'd love for you to do is if you could introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I started working in the immigration sector not as a consultant about 20 years ago. I worked in the nonprofit sector, and at the time I was doing a graduate program. So I always had, sort of a limited focus on the immigration portion, but I really did enjoy it. And once I completed my degree, I, went back to my education portion of my career, and I was there for about 5 years. And then when I left that, because I moved, I came back to the nonprofit sector, and that's when I really started thinking about doing consulting.
So, it was a bit of a gradual foray into it. So, how would you say your experience in the settlement sector prepared you for being an immigration consultant? Because I mean, they're one and the same, but they're not, right? Because you see them, you would see your clients after the fact, once they're already here. So how is that? Has that changed anything for you, perspective, or given you something else to think about?
I think for me, working in the settlement sector really opened my eyes to the things that people deal with in their lives. I worked with a lot of people with a lot of different problems. I think probably 60 to 70% of the clients I worked with were refugees. So, you deal with a lot of people who have, literally been uprooted, left everything behind, um, need a lot of support, maybe don't have language skills. And then, I would also work with people who were skilled professionals, who had a lot going for them. They just really needed help getting started in Canada. So I think it opened me up to a lot of different experiences and a lot of different needs. I would also add that volume was very high. So, in that sense, people talk a lot about volume in immigration consulting. That's really not one of my concerns because I've already dealt with it and I know how to handle it. So I think just getting me exposed to like the broad range of immigration issues that people face was one of the biggest things I learned.
So would you say, because you're dealing with a lot of, you're from the settlement side, a lot of people who come to Canada, do you think they're not they're ill prepared in terms of how hard it is to actually get settled here? Because it's not easy when you're coming into a new country and almost having to start over.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's hardest for skilled professionals who really, and they're not wrong to think this, that, their degrees and their experience and all their skills, everything counts for something. And they're not wrong to think that because it should. But in Canada, unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Accents are discriminated against and foreign degrees are not recognized. And, lack of Canadian experience, whatever that's supposed to bring to a workplace, is also something that's lacking. And so I think they find it very frustrating to actually get past that kind of thing. And I think also there's, maybe at the beginning, a lack of awareness of all of these things. And so once that, once people become aware of these issues, then they sort of figure out a way or know that they need to find a way to address them. But it can take a bit of time before they actually realize that.
So having worked in that space and having that experience and working with so many people, then you made a decision to actually take formal education on the immigration side at Queen's. How did you find your experience at Queen's sort of shaped the experiences that you already had? I guess now you're at the next stage, you're a relatively new immigration consultant. So now it's sort of putting it all together. So where do you sort of see yourself now?
So yeah, I think Queens did a really good job preparing us on the legal side of immigration. I think that in sort of knowledge and experience I had from settlement was kind of the foundation, and then Queens just kind of put everything on top of it for me. So I feel really, fairly confident with both experience and what was taught at Queens in that sense. One thing I would have liked to have seen more in Queens was how to actually manage a business. There is very little information about that. So that's kind of the area that I'm really trying to focus on and you know, um, get more information, more understanding, learn from others about.
Yeah, well, that's so true. I mean, you can have all the immigration knowledge and experience in the world, but if you have no clue how to run a business, I mean, it's to make those right decisions, right? Well, I'm happy to say we've got some of the things coming up on the CAPIC side that hopefully we can engage you on in terms of your business knowledge and experience. But again, sometimes you learn by doing, right? A little bit. You don't want to learn on the backs of your clients, but sometimes you just have to get your feet wet and get in there, and it's a little bit the same on the business side. So I guess that brings me to my next question. Because we were just chatting off air about the challenges of working now in a time when immigration policies are changing rapidly in programs. I mean, I think since January 2024, I heard the number of 190 policy and legislative changes, and the economy is challenging. We've got our challenges south of the border. How does it feel? How has it been for you just starting off in the immigration space at this time? What have
Hmm.
been some of your biggest challenges for you?
Um, I think, I mean, keeping up is always an issue, I think, because things have always changed quickly or um, they're not slow in any event. I also do have, experience. I think my cumulative experience in settlement in the nonprofit sector is about 10 years. So, I do have that context for rapid change. I think just keeping up to date and trying to understand what the impact of all of these changes is. I think the most recent one that I've been a little bit vocal about is Bill C2, that proposes to lump refugees in with border security and control of organized crime. Um, I mean, just, trying to get through that proposed legislation to understand what it actually means. And I think there's a lot of elements of that bill that are not good for Canadians broadly, a lot of infringement on privacy and things like that. So I think it's one thing about the changes, but then really trying to understand what they mean and how they're going to impact things because they're not always directly coming from IRCC. Um, and so, and with Bill C2, we don't really know what that's going to look like exactly yet. It's just a proposed bill.
Yeah, yeah, and it's going through the House and then stakeholder engagement, and we'll see. There's lots of changes. So, I mean, you've definitely have entered the field when something that may be in play today may not be in play in 3 or 4 months. So, in terms of your own practice, have you sort of determined there's an area that you want to focus on, or at this point you're just sort of playing the field a little bit?
I would say I'm probably still playing the field a little bit within certain parameters. I mentioned earlier that my background is with refugees, and that's an area I would really love to work in. But I'm probably not going to do it right now. Maybe a few years from now, I will move into that area. So I think I'm looking at a lot of the same areas that most people focus on. So express entry, sponsorship, um, students. There's a big gamut of different applications you can do with students. And they eventually become permanent residents, ideally, that kind of thing. I do like issues of admissibility. So, those pop up in pretty much every application. um, yeah, I'm really just trying to see where I gain traction at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, there's when I started off, it was you could be a real good generalist and know many areas really, really well, but now immigration is so vast, it's hard to know every aspect intimately well. So then people had started moving to maybe 2 or 3 areas that you would specialize in, but now you saw the huge changes in the student space.
Mhm.
So we're sort of back to knowing more things really well, but I understand it's sort of finding where your comfort level is, and sometimes you start off and it just happens organically. You may end up getting a number of 2 or 3 of inadmissibility cases. Before you know it, people refer friends.
Right.
Um, but it is fascinating. I know when I took my course back in the day at Seneca back in 2002, my very favorite course was refugees, and I loved it. And I've never really done a lot of work in that space, but I can see why that would draw you in, especially given your experience. So you talked a little bit about your experience at Queens and how you wish there had been more support on the business side. Like maybe I know you went through the last course, which sort of was supposed to mirror a business a little bit. But
Mhm.
if you could say something to yourself, like you graduated a year ago, was it a year ago?
About that, yeah.
Now, if you could give some advice to maybe yourself a year ago, or so some of your colleagues coming through now, what would it be?
Um, I mean, Queens, especially if you're doing it full time, can be very intense because it's very busy work. But if you can, I would say start looking at business design or business concepts before you graduate. There's also a lot of lag time between taking the EPE and getting your license. So that's another opportunity to sort of, get yourself oriented around the business.
Um,
Um, but
yes, and you did that. I know you were part of CAPICS. You came and did a lot of little sessions that we had, got to know some people, participated, learned.
Yeah, and I think, using that time that you have available is really helpful because you can't really do anything, right? I mean, the most you can maybe do, no, until you get a result from your EP, you can't even register a business. So, there's nothing you can do until you get your license, basically. So I mean, what I did, yeah, I was attending CAPIC seminars and things like that. I was connecting with my local business I forget what it's called, business organization or something that sponsors a lot of webinars. So I had access to, people who were giving advice on building a website or, other aspects like financial management of a business and that kind of thing. BDC also has a lot of resources available for new business owners and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I did with my time that I really couldn't be productive was to sort of start researching and working on back end things so that I was a little more prepared when I finally got the license.
And how did it feel that day you got your license? It was by email, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was like, finally.
I know. I guess I'll make this maybe my second last question for you. I mean, obviously this is the sort of an extension of your settlement career, and you've been to grad school, you've done, your careers ebb and flow, right? And you've done a variety of different things. What would you say would be some key skills or qualities that you really need to make a difference in this space? For you,
Hmm.
or maybe for you, what's important?
I think for me, and I say this, not trying to pull in or create a negative impression, but I am an introvert. I do like people, but I'm an introvert. And so I think coming from settlement and having that experience, meeting all kinds of different people, I would see 25 different people a week sometimes. And that really got me, just used to getting along with different people and being able to talk to them and getting them to tell me things that are, often very private and difficult to talk about because it has to be said, right? If you're working in the immigration field, you have to talk about difficult topics and things that, for personal or cultural reasons, people don't normally talk about. And so I think, that's one thing that I really learned in settlement was, how to relate to people. And I think that's, maybe one of the most important things in this career.
Yes, and along with that comes an ability to listen well, right? And be empathetic.
Mhm.
Because if you don't know, if you can't get all the information from your client or hear their story, then you can't really provide them the service. And you have to be able to ascertain if you can help them at all. Carolyn, I want to end this just with a little bit of something fun about you. You said you're a little bit of an introvert, so I'm going to try to draw you out a little bit. Tell us something about yourself that maybe is a little bit different that we wouldn't know necessarily. Like maybe you're a ballet dancer and you're part-time, or you can sing, or you can paint, or I know you're from Hamilton, you're
Mhm.
from Steeltown, but maybe there's something that you'd like to share about yourself that's a little bit fun.
So actually, I'll correct that. I live in Hamilton, but I am not from Hamilton. I am from Toronto, And
Okay.
I've lived in various parts of Southern Ontario throughout my life. I've also lived in, I think my country count is about 5 now. So, uh,
Wow.
yeah, I've lived in different parts of the world as well. So, yeah, I'm nomadic, an introvert and
Oh.
nomadic. Maybe those don't
Oh,
go together.
well, so that's very interesting. So you've kind of lived a little bit of the journey of an immigrant. I mean, not that you immigrated to those countries, but you have the experience of going somewhere, having to settle and figure things out, and so that experience. Do you find that helps you relate a little bit to your clients?
I do. I mean, I've been an international student in 2 countries. I did actually fully immigrate and become a permanent resident in another country. So yeah, I mean, I think Canada's immigration is much more complex than many other countries. When I moved to Chile, it really wasn't that complicated to become a permanent resident. But yeah, I think it does give me some empathy and some understanding of what people go through because either way, it's moving is traumatic. Moving is one of the most stressful things that people do, right? And when you move to another country, that's even worse. There's a lot to adjust to. So I think I do have that understanding.
So obviously, can you speak Spanish
I can.
and French?
I don't speak very well, but I do understand about 80-90% of it. So
Oh, I'm so impressed. I am so impressed. So, well, I really have enjoyed our conversation today, and thank you for coming to Soundbites for Immigration Success. It's really important that we hear a variety of voices, and yours is just as important as any, um, so that your fellow alumni can sort of hear your journey and where you are and understand that we all have something to offer and bring. Do you have any final words that you want to impart today?
oh, I don't know. I don't think I have any more to add. I am an introvert, so unless you ask me specifically, I'm probably not going to volunteer.
Um, can you do the ballet?
The ballet, no.
I'm just teasing. Carolyn, we'll just leave it at that. Thank you for being part of this today. It's been wonderful to chat with you, and I look forward to maybe doing this another time.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And thank you to all of you out there. We hope you've enjoyed getting to know Carolyn, and we look forward to seeing you or hearing you or having you hear us at the next one. Thank you.